So welcome back to my channel, fellow gardeners. Today I'm going to go back into the Aeonium plant, our Irish rose, or the treehouse leek as we've known it, and we're going to look at propagating the pups. So welcome back. My name is Alice and I'm the Red Soil Gardener. So now we're looking at our Aeonium plant, and we had done before propagation of the stem, where it's actually this one, where I just took the stem and I put it in soil, and we did see that it did start getting rooting after 10 days. Now the thing that we were hanging on to is that we couldn't do a propagation of the pups because the pups were still very young, and I was scared in case we started doing a propagation and the actual stem of the pup was too young, or it may start rotting and I wouldn't get a success story. So now what I did in the last 3 days, I found a lot of pups and I started propagating it. Because basically I would thought to myself, I really do love this plant and it's producing so many pups. If I can propagate it, that means I can have a whole area where I would have these beautiful Aeonium, the Irish rose, or the treehouse leek. Now, going back to our Aeonium, let me just do a quick recap. It's basically an evergreen succulent, and we do have a lot of varieties. Sometimes you do get the pink variety, or the variegated variety, or the dark, or the black or the dark brown variety, but these are the ones that I've managed to have. So I do have this dark brown and this light lime green variety, but as we move along, I will try to get some more. Now the thing about this evergreen succulent is that, first of all, is that it doesn't like to be put under full sun. It will scorch the leaves and it will stress the plant. So what I found that this plant actually does like is actually maybe 4 to 6 hours of sun. So I do give it a morning sun, but by the afternoon, when it starts from midday up to the afternoon, when the heat is quite intense, I actually have it in an area that it does sit under partial shade. So basically is that full sun is actually not really recommended for this plant if you want it to actually thrive. Now the second thing is the watering habit. Is that normally with succulents, as we know, is that you give it a good soak. As we said, you drench it, either put it in a bucket and lift it up, wait for 20 minutes and let the water really seep through, and do that same process again, in that way that your soil can actually have retain the moisture. And then the next time you water is you let it dry out, and then again give it a really good soak or a really good drench. Now the thing about the soil is, like, what I usually do with these succulents is I have my soil, which is part of, I've got a lot of grit in there. I have pumice because we can't get perlite here, but I find that pumice actually aerates the soil. And also the beautiful thing about it, it does let the water drain through. As we know with succulents, they don't like to be waterlogged, because once you do waterlog them, is that you will get root rot and the plant will die. So basically this one, if I may just show you, if you look here, is that I have pumice in there. I do have a bit of vermiculite, because the beautiful thing about the succulent is that it does like the soil slightly moist. So I did put a bit of vermiculite just to retain a bit of that water. But then basically it is this type of soil that I've used is a bit of a cacti soil with a bit of potting soil. Now the thing about my little Aeonium plant, my beautiful evergreen succulent, is that one of the things about it is that it is called a summer dormant plant. A few succulents do this when you do get a really, really hot summer, some of the succulents do decide to go into dormancy, which basically means they slow down. And sometimes with the Aeonium, as you've noticed, if you do have one, is that it starts losing its petals. So you end up having a lot of these leaves falling down, but I wouldn't worry so much about it. And this is when you do notice that they do go a bit lanky because they've lost all their leaves, and they stop literally operating. Now, what happens once it does go into dormancy is that don't overwater it, just leave it very little water. And then once the cooler temperature starts again, this is the growing season. So in fall, suddenly your Aeonium is going to pick up, and this is the growing season where you can do propagation, you can fertilize the plant, and also you can do all the repotting you want during the growing season. So now I am assuming that during this period, because in Nairobi at the moment it is actually our summer, and we have had quite a lot of intense heat. But what I've done with my Aeonium is that I've actually put them under trees, and that's why they look actually good and they haven't gone dormant. But this is the perfect time also for myself to look at it, because the rains are coming and they haven't gone dormant. This is the time where I am going to do my propagation, and we did say we're going to look at the pups. Now what I did is I went into this particular Aeonium plant and decided that's where I'm going to get my cuttings from, because basically I had a lot of pups happening. Now the first thing you do is you sterilize your knife, and I find knives are actually quite good because because basically once you do get in there, make sure you cut it at a 45-degree angle, and I'll explain why later. So sterilize your knife, go in here, look for your pup, and out of the pup you separate it from the mother plant. And remember, as we said previously, once the mother has flowered and then starts producing the pups, what happens in thereafter, the mother will slowly sort of die, but what remains is the pups. So I've gone there and I've taken my cutting, which is this one, from this Aeonium plant. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually just pull these leaves out, because we know from every single leaf node is that you're going to actually get your rooting. So I'm just going to remove some of these because just like that. I've already done this one two days ago, and I've allowed it to callus. And again, callusing is good, because once you do callus, is that it protects the plant, well, the stem, from any sort of bacterial, fungal sort of disease it can get. It sort of seals the plant, and then you're good to go. Now, what happens is, like with this one, as I haven't calloused it, what I normally do is I will still pot it in the soil, but I will not water it. I will leave it there and give it a few, 2-3 days, 4 days, and then that's when I would start to water. So if you do forget to callus, just ensure that when you do put your stem back here, your pup, is give it time not to be watered, and then it'll sort of more or less sort itself out, and that's when you can start the watering. This is my party glass, and what I've done is I've made drainage holes underneath, and these are really great because they're actually really, really cheap. You could actually see if the soil is moist by just looking at it. You actually see the water actually going down. You have your drainage holes, which I've made done through getting a skewer and putting it on a gas stove, and then just making piercing. And I think these are great because you can actually propagate as much as you want, and it costs you absolutely nothing. So with this this one, which is calloused, what I'm going to simply do is I'm going to just make a hole in here like this. And this is moist. I did water it yesterday, so it's slightly moist. And I'm just going to put my Aeonium pup in there and just cover it. just like that. And then I did have this one again, which I actually allowed it to callus with that one. So all I'm going to do is just remove some of these pups. And again, every single leaf node, as we know, that's where you're going to actually get your rooting. Again, do the same thing. Make my hole here, like that, simple. And then take the one which has calloused and just simply slip it in here. And I would actually press it a bit so that it anchors itself in there. There we go. So this is actually a simple pup propagation, and we have all these lovely little pups that are going to propagate. And eventually, once I do have this here, I will actually place it in indirect light, not full sun, because you will scorch it and it will die. So what I normally do is, with pups like this, I do have a window in my kitchen where I place these in sort of filtered light. And once they do start propagating and getting rooting, I will actually move it into a container and slowly later introduce it into a bigger pot and later into the garden. So thank you very much, fellow gardeners. I hope you've learned something. Do go and propagate some pups. And if you've seen this particular plant here, is look at the amount of pups I have. And this is the one we actually did a stem propagation, and I had put it in the soil for 10 days and left it like that, and suddenly I have all these pups to propagate. So they are a very interesting plant. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to press that notification button so you're always notified when our episodes do come out. And don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot to us. Also introduce us to your friends, your family. And don't forget, we are on Instagram. I do post a lot on Instagram, so do have a look at our Instagram. And don't forget, you know, I'm on YouTube. Comments, do leave your comments. I always am there to answer. And on Instagram, do leave your comment. I'm always there to answer. So do get yourself a plant. Bye. Happy gardening.